Yeah, I think you can start now.
Okay. Thanks, Saqib, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So just to introduce us, my name is Ochishman Mitro. I work at International Water Management Institute. So today for this session, I have with us Mahfuda from IDCOL in Bangladesh and my colleague, Dr. Smarnika Mahapatra, who also works in International Water Management Institute in Delhi, India. So today what we'll be doing is we'll be sharing our experience on solar irrigation pumps in Bangladesh. Our organization is part of a CDIR organization that works on agricultural research, and in Bangladesh we are working on a project on looking at the impact of solar irrigation pumps and its viability and its business model across Bangladesh, and we are working with IDCOL, which is the leading organization in terms of financing renewable projects in Bangladesh and also most of the solar irrigation pumps. So we'll be sharing our experience followed by question and answer round. So let me just share my screen. I hope all of you can see my screen. Let me know if there is any issue. So to set the context of why solar irrigation pumps in Bangladesh. So we know that in Boro rice, which is grown during the summer, is very important for the national food security and farmers' income in Bangladesh. So 88% of the total food grain production in Bangladesh is paddy, and Boro is almost 50% of the total food grain production. But Boro, which is grown during the summer, requires also intensive irrigation. And most of this irrigation is done by diesel pumps. So there are 1.24 million diesel pumps in Bangladesh, which irrigates 3 million hectares. But the issue is that most of this diesel is imported from outside. So that puts a financial burden on the country and also creates energy insecurity. So first of all, because it has to be imported, there's a huge foreign exchange reserve outflow. So in the last decade, if we look at the data, then there's $3.2 billion per year on average was the import cost for petroleum products. If we assume from data that 60% is used in agriculture, so $500 million was the import cost yearly. So that's one issue, but more importantly, the country becomes susceptible to international oil price shock. So either the government has to come in and provide subsidies, which we saw in 2012-13 when the total petroleum subsidy increased to $1.6 billion in the year. Or in the other case, if the government is not subsidizing, then the energy prices rises. There's an energy crisis, which we saw in last year during the Russia-Ukraine war. So financially, it is important to move away from diesel dependency. Another aspect is diesel used in agricultural sector also contributes to greenhouse gas emissions. So our estimates, it contributes roughly around 3 million metric tons of CO2 per year. In the literature, there are other estimates which even puts it at 6 million tons per year emissions. So it's a considerable amount of emissions that happens from irrigation, diesel use in irrigation. And Bangladesh government under NDC target under UNFCCC, Bangladesh is committed to do emission reductions by 6.73% below business as usual by 2030 unconditionally and additional 15% conditionally. So there is need to move away from diesel, both from the perspective of the financial security, energy security, and for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So that is basically the reason why government objective in promoting SIP is to replace diesels, energy security, and reduction in emissions. But if you look at current situation, the renewable sector is still quite small. It's out of the total installed capacity of electricity, it's around 3%, and solar is around 700 megawatts. and solar irrigation is just around 50 megawatts installed capacity. And most of this, out of this 50 megawatt, more than 80% is by IDCOL, which is the lead organization. Mahfouda will talk more about what their model, which is a fee-for-service model. But there are also government organizations, Bahrain Multipurpose Development Authority, BMDA, and BADC. They have their group ownership models. I'll talk about them briefly. And then Bangladesh Rural Electrification Board, they also have their model of solar irrigation pumps. So SIPs are still in a nascent stage in terms of the total energy use of the country, but it has huge growth potential. So in its NDC target, government has proposed that the total installed capacity could be increased for up to 176 megawatt in solar irrigation pumps and additional 164 megawatts conditional on condition. So the installed capacity of solar irrigation pumps is going to increase 3 to 6 times in the coming years, and it can increase even more if the prices of solar irrigation pumps fall further and diesel prices become very high as we see currently. So it is important to see how the solar irrigation pumps are working. What is interesting in Bangladesh is, although it is the capacity is only 50 megawatt right now, there is already different business models that are working. So there's the IDCOL business models, which are off-grid pumps. These are large pumps, mostly 30 to 40 kilowatt peaks systems. And these are using deep tubes for groundwater irrigation. These are so here what happens is the IDCOL gives out loan and grant to private companies who then set up these solar irrigation pumps and then sell water to farmers in exchange of a fee. Mahfouda will tell in more detail how that model is working. The other model that we see is by Bangladesh Rural Electrification Board. These are grid connected, much smaller systems, 3 HP to 15 HP pumps. Here, these are shallow tubules for groundwater use. These are being used. Here, the grant component is higher than IDCOL, around 62 to 66%. The down payment that farmers have to make is just 3 to 4%, and the remaining amount is a loan, which is 0% interest loan for 10-year period. Here, the pumps are given to individual farmers, not to companies to sell water, but to individual farmers. And the final model is the government models of BMD and BADC, which are again off-grid pumps. These are also large pumps, but these are either dug wells or LLPs, low lift pumps using surface water irrigation. And here the entire capital expenditure is financed through grant of the government. And these are given to the farmers who then manage it as a group and use it to take irrigation. So there are already different models, but most of these models, most of these systems are IDCOL systems. And as we can see in the map, that most of these current solar installations are in the northwest region, in Dinajpur and Rangpur, and some in Khulna in the southwest region. And BMDA has this low lift pumps in some in the Bahrain region using surface area. So in our research, we look at how these pumps are working and some of the challenges that they are facing, what we are doing in terms of that. But before I go to that, I'll request Mahfouda to talk more about the IDCOL system and their model and how they are working. So Mahfouda, if you can.
Great. Thank you, Archishman. I think okay, should I share my screen from here, or
yes,
someone?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to share? If you're having issue, I can share.
I think that would be very helpful.
Okay.
Can you?
Yeah, that I can do. Just I can do that. Just tell me when you need to. Can you see the?
Yes, yes, it's fine. Can you? Okay, great. So basically, let me just give us a very brief introduction of IDCOL and what IDCOL does. So we are basically a government-owned financial, non-banking financial institute, and we have been established in 1997. Our main agenda is actually to use concessional funds from the government and from the development partners and to blend it with the private sector equity and to finance projects which normally a private sector will not invest in. So suppose for large infrastructure projects, large energy efficiency projects, or renewable energy projects, which are very costly and which are not feasible with the initial capital requirement at the cost of the capital investment. In such cases, what we do is we try to concessionalize through longer tenure, lower interest rate, and also some other market facilities. We try to promote those sectors so that we can meet the government agendas. Currently, we are the market leader in renewable energy, and we have a portfolio of several renewable energy products. Can you go to the next slide? So we started with the solar home system program. So that was more in the rural side where the grid electrification has not yet reached. So we started with solar home system. We have the highest penetration so far. Then we moved on to a bigger system in terms of solar mini grid. And then we started in solar irrigation, solar grid tied projects. We still haven't financed a lot of grid tied projects, but a few of them are financed by us. We are we are expanding in solar rooftop projects for the industrial sector. We have biogas and biofertilizer program, and also we have the improved cookstoves program. Go to the next slide. Okay, so about the solar irrigation program. So what Artishman had said previously, that mostly in Bangladesh, you would see that these kind of initiatives are mostly taken by the government as they are costly initiatives, they are costly projects. So but whatever the initiatives are taken by the government are mostly grant based. But in case of IDCOL, we have like a proper business model where the private investors are investing, and they are the ones who are actually taking care of the entire projects, and they are also, cooperating with the farmers to ensure that how they can provide a better services in terms of irrigation. Can you move to the next slide? Next slide. Okay, so our objective is basically to replace this diesel run irrigation pump with a more cleaner and a greener version of the irrigation so that we can reduce the CO2 emission and can achieve the NDC targets of the country. And we also want to play a strong role in ensuring the food security of the country. So we are funded, currently the irrigation program is funded by the World Bank. So we get a concessional credit line from the World Bank. We have KfW as our partner, JICA, BCCRF, GPOBA, ADB, USAID, and United Nations Environment Program. So how does an SIP really works? It's just like a normal, I would say like a diesel pump. It just the power comes from the solar panel. So the solar panel powers the submersible pump that extracts water from underground. It goes to the pump house where the water is stored initially. And then we have a reservoir, which actually creates the huge pressure of the water that ensures that the water can go through underground pipes to covers a large area of the agricultural field. Can you go to the next slide? So the basic, if you have like a basic overview of the program, we have installed so far 1,523 pumps. We have a beneficiary of more than 70,000 farmers. We are covering more than 550 acres of areas under our program. Our average panel size is usually 42 kilowatt peak, and average capacity is 18.5 kilowatt peak. Our pump are capable of extracting 20 lakh liters of water per day. And we have a target of installing 10,000 pumps, which will give an emission reduction of 10 million tons of CO2 through the project life, supporting more than 400,000 of farmers. So coming to the business model, which is the most important part of this presentation, is that IDCOL not only deals with the private sector. As you can see here, there are quite a lot of stakeholders. So starting with the TSC, so that's the technical standard committee that we have that sets the standard requirement for all the technical equipment. So what happens is normally, if you just finance a project, you cannot ensure the technical aspects of the standards of the equipment. So there's always a risk that the project might not sustain and the equipment might fail, and private sector might not be able to generate the revenue as expected from the program. So IDCOL plays a very basic role in ensuring the standards of the equipment. we have a group of engineers, we have a group of monitoring team that ensures that the standards are met. Proper standard of equipments are bought by our sponsors, who are basically our borrowers of the IDCOL, implementing this program in the field. And then the sponsors, basically with the technical standards, so the sponsor comes to IDCOL and they seeks for the financing. So our financing constitutes of both grant and loan. Why? I will talk in my next slide. And then with that financing, they set up this private sponsor, they set up the pump, and they are now selling the water to the farmers. So the farmer are actually not hiring any more diesel pump or electric pump from other players, but rather they're buying water from our sponsors. And of course, we have, on the other hand, the development partners who are giving us these grants and these soft-term credits. It's a snapshot of our year-wise installation. So how much installation we have done so far. So as you can see, the installation is rising day by day, which indicating that we have a huge demand in the market. Can we go to the next slide?
Just a moment.
Okay, so coming back to the financing structure, here you can see that we have the equity contribution from the private sector. So that's 15% of the total project cost. We provide a concessional credit line of 35%, and there's a grant of 50%. So out of total 100%, if you see the private sector investing 15% of the entire project, which previously wouldn't have been possible with the present context of the market, because as you can see, there's a huge requirement of the grant to still make this project feasible, which indicates it's a very costly project. If you see the financing term, the term loan is for 10 years, which is, I would say, comparatively much for a longer tenure than that of the commercial banks. We have an interest rate of 6%, or fixed 6%. So this does not fluctuate with the market rates. It's fixed for the 10 years. We have a grace period of 24 months because our sponsors, when they initially start implementing this project, they might not be successful initially because we have to train them up. They have to learn how this process works. So that takes time. So we give them a grace period of 24 months, and we have a 32 quarterly installment payment. And the security, that's minimal security that is required, is the bank guarantee or FDR. I will not go into the details. So overall achievement here is that we have a huge coverage of solar irrigation throughout the country. We are present in the 5 divisions of our country, 18 districts and 63 upajalas. And our business model is something that's constantly changing with whatever inputs that we're getting from the field. We talk with the farmers, with the extension officers, with the local stakeholders, and we try to improve our model accordingly. Our system cost has reduced significantly, almost by 68% in the last 8 years. It's mainly because we're developing the market. There's some amount of economies of scale in terms of import of this equipment from abroad. We have a better connection with the supplier. Now there's a standardized system of entire process. So the system cost has reduced by almost 68%. Irrigation rates are definitely lower than compared to that of the diesel pump, because solar irrigation, later I think Artishman will further talk about this, how you can see that the irrigation system through solar panels are much more cheaper than that of the diesel pump, especially with the rising diesel prices. We also focus on female beneficiaries. We have 29 project sponsors who have created 1,655 employment in their own companies. We have a pool of 24 equipment suppliers from 8 countries. We have an irrigation database of 200 upajalas that is helping the extension service provider to better integrate their services and products to our farmers. We have SIP grid integration guidelines circulated by the Power Division. Artishman will further talk about this. And we have also ensured a good amount of carbon emission reduction through our program. Moving on to the next slide. So economic benefits, as I've already mentioned, that the tariff is much lower than that of the diesel pump, and we are helping a lot of farmers access this cheap irrigation. The rice production has significantly increased for the farmers who are working with us. Their cropping pattern has increased. Maybe previously they would only crop for 2 times a year, but now they're cropping for multiple times. We are also helping them to understand which are the high yielding crops. We are connecting them better with the extension service providers because as if the farmer benefits, we also benefit. So it's a coexistence. So we also try our farmers to ensure that they can improve their yield with time. We also use pipelines. So there's an underground pipeline. In case of diesel pump, they're almost like 1.34 million diesel pump in the country, and they do not use some kind of water management system. But in our under program, we use underground buried pipeline. So water loss, evaporation are much, much lower. So that's how we ensure the efficiency under the program. Farmers also now, as I've said, are producing multiple crops in a year, and we have excess electricity generation, which are being used in terms of agricultural mechanization. And additional revenue, the also is something that we are actually considering, how we can generate additional revenue using the extra space under the panel. So if you can see in the next slide, you'll see some of the pictures. I think I'll just end with this slide. So if you see here that the excess electricity that's produced from the panel is actually used by the women for goat farming. Then we have modified biofloc. So that's it's a kind of they're actually growing fish in that tank, which they can sell, high yielding species, of course, which they can sell in the market at a higher price. We also helping with the running of the husking machine with the extra power generated from the solar panels. There's aquaculture going on. There's also we're also promoting crop cultivation under the panel, and the last picture shows poultry farming under the panel. So with the excess electricity generation, we are actually powering whatever equipment that's required for poultry farming. So I think that's all from my my side. I will stop here due to the time limitation, and I would request the next speaker to please present their part.
Okay, thanks, Mahfouda. You can, if you want to present this slide, you can present.
So we do have a lot of awards and recognition in this field. We have, as you can see in the slide, we have received quite a lot of global recognition for our solar irrigation program, and we hope to scale this up under our different development partners. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mahfouda. So as Mahfouda was saying, Mahfouda described what IDCOL is doing in terms of solar irrigation pumps, but IMI basically is also partnering with IDCOL to sort of understand how these models are working, and we sort of also piloted a grid integration project with IDCOL. So I'll be presenting the results that we find from the IDCOL SIPs. So just this second. Yeah. So as we have been saying that one of the main target has been the reduction in diesel use, and what we find is that within the SIP command area, the diesel use has reduced by almost 90%. So total CO2 emission in Bangladesh is around 90 million tons, and if we just estimate how much CO2 emission from diesel irrigation, we can use different methods from individual farmers' data. We can aggregate up, or we can look at the aggregate data and then sort of estimate the diesel sold to agricultural sector, and from there estimate how much is the emission, and we sort of find that the emission is around 200 kg per acre of CO2 emissions yearly. And if then, since annual diesel use in the SIP command area reduces by 89%, so most of this reduction happens during the Boro season, which is the main irrigation season. So there is still some diesel use during the Rabi season that still happens within the SIP command area. This is mostly due to during Rabi season, if farmers are growing vegetable, in some areas they prefer the relatively low discharge of a small diesel pump. The discharge from the solar irrigation pumps might be a bit higher, so some of them still use these vegetables, but otherwise the diesel use has completely gone down within the SIP command area. And if we multiply by the total amount, so if we estimate how much that entails in terms of CO2 reduction, we see that around 1,500 IDCOL SIPs mitigate around 4.3 to 5.6 thousand metric tons of CO2 per year, and which accounts for around 2.8 to 3.7 metric tons per year per SIP IDCOL SIPs. And if we can solarize all 3 million hectares of diesel irrigated areas, we can reduce about 1.2 to 1.6 million metric tons of CO2 per year. Now, how much value you put to that mitigation depends on how much value you put on social cost of carbon. And that is, there's like, these estimates are not precise. So it can be $50 per ton, or it can be $200 per ton. So really, how much value you put on that social cost of carbon determines how much benefit you assume on that. But what SIPs does is it successfully reduces diesel use within the SIP command area. But what is interesting is it also has a lot of co-benefits for the farmers within the SIP command area. So as Mahfuda was saying, what we find is that the irrigation cost is for SIPs at 20 to 30% lower compared to diesel pumps. And also it is very convenient for buyers. So in Bangladesh, if you know the diesel pump users, most of them are buyers, so that they either take the pump from the pump owner, or even if they have their own pump, they have to bring the pump to the field. Then they have to buy diesel separately, and also they have to dig irrigation channels for the irrigation distribution. And also, if you're hiring machine, then you have to set up a queue with the pump owner, get your time, and then you have to stay till the irrigation is being done. So it takes a lot of time. And what we find is that because in IDCOL SIPs, the operators are giving water to the field, it saves a lot of time for the farmers, which they can use for other productive uses. And if we put a monetary value, it's around up to 1,000 rupees per season in terms of lost wages for farmers that they save when they ship to SIP command area. Also, the underground pipe saves on land and labor for creating field channels. But we also find that there's a marginal difference in terms of irrigation in Kharif season, during the monsoon season. So if there's a late monsoon, because SIPs are cheaper, they can sort of give water to their crops during if the rain is late, compared to a diesel pump who will wait a longer time, because diesel would be much more costlier than SIPs. So that sort of saves the almond crop also. So these effects are more or less you can expect, but what is interesting is you also see a statistically significant increase in yield and income for SIP water buyers. So the increase in yield, if you look at this table, in almond crop, which is the monsoon season crop, there is no difference between the yield of a SIP user and a diesel user. Similarly, there is no difference in the profit of almond between diesel and SIP. But in the Boro crop, around 200 kg per acre increase in yield for SIP users. And in terms of income, it's up between 4,000 to 5,000 taka per acre increased profit for SIP farmers, IDCOL SIP farmers. So the reason the income is higher is twofold. One is the cost of irrigation is lower, and the other is the yield is higher. And the higher yield is because now they get a better quality irrigation during stress periods of the crop growth stages, and also some reallocation of inputs and the lower cost. So all of that relates to higher yield of Boro for SIP farmers. So these are important. So what we find is that due to lower irrigation costs and better quality service, there are significant co-benefits that accrue to farmers. And it is typical of all the mitigation strategies. Among all the mitigation strategies, this is unique because it does not have a yield penalty or any negative effects on the farmers. Instead, it has a positive effect. So that makes what SIP is quite attractive. But what we find looking at different models in Bangladesh, that there are some inherent challenges in SIP for scaling up SIPs. And this learning is for not just for Bangladesh, but also for similar regions in the neighborhood. For example, in Eastern India or in Nepal, Tarai regions where there is heavy diesel use, very small farmers, very poor farmers. So first of all is the high capex as a constraint on scaling. It's expensive You need a initial investment is very high, around 2.4 to 3 lakhs BDT per HP. The panel cost is around quarter of the total project cost. The other is the pump, the boring, the underground pipes, the management cost, etc. So liquidity constraint and risk aversion creates a barrier for scaling up this technology. And there are two ways of tackling this. The more standard way, which we see in India and Nepal, is the subsidy. You give subsidy, then you transfer it to the group of farmers who then own and manage it. The other is you make the pumps very small. You give 0% interest, and also the upfront payment, you make it very small with higher subsidy, like the BREB model. What is unique in Bangladesh is the IDCOL model, where basically the subsidy is only 50%, and you bring in private company partnership with the public PPP to provide the capital and undertake the initial risk for setting up the irrigation business. So that's another model that people that neighboring regions can learn from for adopting SIPs. The other thing is the financial viability, which means that when does it make sense even to invest in SIPs? So that depends how much is the private and social benefits of using SIPs, and that really means that that will depend in regions where there is high demand for irrigation and high cost of irrigation because they're dependent on diesel. For example, it will not make sense in investing in SIPs if farmers are growing very low water intensive crops. So in Bangladesh, most of these are being used for Boro region. The IDCOL pumps are targeted for Boro growing areas. But still there is low capacity utilization, which sort of affects the financial viability. And I'll talk about it, what can be done on increasing the capacity utilization of SIPs in off-grid areas such as Bangladesh, Eastern India, etc. The other aspect of scaling up SIPs is achieving equity. So the way people do is governments give highly subsidized models targeting towards marginalized groups. But still, elite capture, like everybody who has worked in this development sector knows that it is very difficult to avoid elite capture in the local context. So one needs to be very extra careful in terms of how these water users groups are being set up, how the costs are shared among the members of the water users groups. So that's something that needs to be really thought about and experimented. But another way to look about equity is, okay, maybe the subsidy does not go directly to the farmer, but through the groundwater market, SIPs lowers the irrigation cost, and then the water buyers gets a lower irrigation cost, and that sort of the benefit of the SIP reaches to the marginalized. Now, how the irrigation cost will go down will depend on competition. That is, what are the alternative energy sources in the village? If electric pump comes in, that sort of pushes down the irrigation price, and then SIPs also have to then lower the irrigation price of them. But that affects the financial viability, because you have set up these big systems, which becomes financial viable only when you can sell them at a higher price. If electric prices come in and the irrigation price goes down, then you have to also lower your irrigation cost. The price that you charge to farmers, the SIP, and that sort of so there's a two-way force between equity and financial viability here. We sort of grid integration. I'll talk about it later. Grid integration sort of tries to handle that, but I'll talk about that later. The other important aspect is about technical support, that who will do the operation and maintenance after the loan is paid or after the government has set up and gone. Who will do the operation and maintenance, or if the new equipment is something has gone wrong, you need a new equipment, where will you find it? So currently implementing agencies are providing the support. Sponsors with large scale of operation are also better suited for managing operation maintenance. But first of all, for the government systems, there is need for agricultural extension department in coordination with the government department to set up a system of providing long-term technical and managerial support. And also sponsors, because it's a business for them, they also have incentive to continue the operation and maintenance in the long term. But you need government support here. And finally, one challenge of scaling up solar irrigation pumps is generating demand for off-grid SIPs. There are substantial transaction costs. You have to gather the farmers, generate demand from them. If you are setting up a water group, then again, that involves a lot of institutional support. Also, there's a tubal permit requirement. So there needs to be a minimum distance between two pumps. So any new pump needs a certificate from the Upazila Irrigation Committee that it is okay to set up the pump. Only then the SIP can be set up, which again creates administrative cost and delay in terms of setting up new pumps. So these systems need to be made more, the administrative costs need to be lowered, and it needs to be made more easier to set up these solar irrigation pumps. So as I was saying, that one of the main challenges is the low capacity utilization in terms of financial viability. So in the Bangladesh context, if we see the irrigation demand is limited to only 4 to 5 months during the Boro season, the rest of the time it is not used so much. But even within the Boro season, there is a 15-day period in the beginning when the demand is very high. So for the IDCOL SIPs, if they have to capture if they have to capture sufficiently large command area, then they need to be able to provide water in those 15 days to that large command area. For that, they require a high panel to pump capacity ratio so that they can maintain the water flow at the same rate during the entire day. Although the sun in the morning and in the afternoon, the sun rays, the irradiation goes down. So you need a larger panel to sort of generate the more energy. So the average panel to pump capacity ratio is around 2, which is quite high if we compare to in India. So that also then you have a lot of excess capacity in the system. And then also, as I said, that increasing electrification threatens the financial viability of sales. So so increasing capacity utilization is crucial. So one way is to use alternative uses, like using it for running husking machines, threshing machines, or even in cold storage. There are examples, but it is limited in scope. So in some cases it is possible to do so, but not in all cases. The main challenge is these SIPs are set up in the middle of the field. So if you have a threshing machine in the middle of the field, you need the farmer to bring their produce into the middle of the field to do the threshing or husking, which is quite difficult. So if it is near the road, then these sort of systems are possible. The other alternative is grid integration. So the SIPs are operated only for 134 days on average in the year, even lower in the Northwest. And so you have this readily available solar infra that you can sort of connect to the grid. When irrigation is not being done, the systems can sell the SIPs back, the energy back to the grid, and earn money from the utility for selling of that electricity. So connecting to the grid, there is some additional investment, 20% additional investment, that is on average 20% additional investment, which comes around 0.035 million taka per kilowatt peak. So to try this out, we are piloting with IDCOL 9 grid integration of 9 SIPs in Bangladesh. 6 sites have already been grid connected, and 3 remaining sites will be connected in by March. So in one site, which is the Ghazi site in Northwest, 4 sites are being connected in a cluster. So all of them are 4 nearby sites are together being connected to the grid. Each of these are around 30 kilowatt PV, and the distance from the transformer is between 0 to 500 meters. And the wave sites, the 3 sites in the Southwest, these are connected to the grid. So we are piloting with the system to see which one works best, what are the challenges, and they earn the amount. So the government now the amount that for each unit they get 4 taka per unit, 4.36 taka per unit. And what we so I'll skip here. So what we find that these 4 systems, they sell around 60 units per kilowatt peak per month. The Ghazis, the northwest sides, sell slightly more electricity back to the grid than the southwest sides of wave, because the irrigation requirement in the Ghazi sides are less compared to the wave sides. So what we find is that the main question is if the current tariffs are sufficient. So if we look at currently the water tariff of SIPs are between diesel and electric. Diesel is 60% higher than electric, and around 20 to 25% higher than SIPs, as I told you. So so IDCOL, they have done a viability analysis of what sort of system makes, when grid integration can make sense. So SIP water tariff without grid integration, or so SIP water tariff means that what the SIPs are currently charging, which is 25% lower than diesel. But if they have to charge similar to electric pumps, because new electric pumps, you have to compete with this electric system. So if you have to charge as the electric pumps and you are grid integrated, then at the current rate it does not make sense. If the current rate needs to be increased, the grid integration rate of it has to be increased from 4.36 to 8.5 unit per unit to make viable the grid integration. So higher buyback rate by BREB of this grid integration system is required. And actually, if we look at at what rate government is purchasing, it's quite high. The government is purchasing electricity from IPPs at 8 units, 9 units. So it makes sense to also buy from the farmers at a higher rate. And also there is need for promoting net metering. So currently in these grid integrated systems, they cannot take electricity from the grid. But with net metering, they can also take electricity from the grid. There needs to be safeguards so that they don't completely shift to electricity and give up on solar panels. So you can cap the maximum energy use, or you can make them compulsory net exporter. But how net metering helps is that you can sort of during those 15 days you can take electricity to give irrigation, and that will allow you to lower the panel capacity also. So that will lower the cost of the total project. So there is need to tweak around these grid integration tariffs to make these systems more sustainable. So just to conclude, I'll just conclude very quickly. We find that SIPs are very attractive as mitigation technology because it has adaptation co-benefits to farmers. Then we see there are multiple models, each are suitable for different regions. There are learnings for the neighboring regions. And what we find that for financial sustainable alternative use of panels is very important. Their grid integration is the possible solution, and where net metering is possible, that should also be tried out, and also other alternative uses of panels. So yeah, so this sort of where I'll end. But as you can see, there is one main question that we have not yet tackled, which is what happens to the groundwater, because these systems are much cheaper than diesel. So the fear is that farmers will be using more water, and what will be the long-term impact on groundwater sustainability. So in our project, we are also looking at that question. So my colleague will be presenting that next. Smarnika?
Yeah, thank you, Ajisman. Just sharing my screen. Yeah. So, good morning all. I am Smaranika Mahapatra. I'm working as a research officer in ME India office. So as Ajisman told, so the topic is on assessing the groundwater sustainability, what will be the impact of solar irrigation pumping on the groundwater sustainability. So as you know, Bangladesh is one of the major groundwater extracting countries in the world, and that groundwater extraction, about 86% comes from the irrigation only. So over the years, you can see the area under groundwater is increasing year by year, and especially under shallow tube well, the area is sharply increasing. So among that irrigated area, the pumps are highly equipped with diesel pumps, and about 53.5% of the total irrigated area is equipped with diesel pumps. So basically, this northwestern part of the country that is highly densely equipped with diesel pumps. But because of these pumps, there is higher contribution of carbon dioxide emission that is causing high emission and becoming one of the major factors contributing to the climate change phenomenon at a global scale. So there are debates rising on in support of solar energy that can serve as a clean energy and cost-effective solution for mitigating the climate change impacts. But there are also rising concerns because this is a cost-effective solution. Farmer may tend to apply more water for irrigation. So there are hardly any detailed study regarding what will be the impact of solar irrigation pumping on the long-term groundwater sustainability under future climate change scenarios, especially at a larger scale. So, but in this direction, EME in partnership with IDCOL has that has tried to study the impact. So for this, 12 SIPs in northwest and southwest region of the country were selected based upon the farmer capacity, SIP farmer capacity, feasibility of monitoring and installation of SIPs. Then they were selected, and also SIP farmers and controlled diesel farmers were selected in both the regions. After that, different installation instruments were installed for monitoring the water application and irrigation application hours, and for that, logbooks were maintained. In the last stage of this study, comparison were made for SIP and diesel farmers for comparing the water application depth between diesel and SIP farmers, and also that study has been done into a groundwater modeling that assesses the long-term impact under different climatic and management scenarios. So these are few photos from the field where you can see the installation of flow meters to monitor the water application, and also the operators were trained in this process to how to monitor those, and to also record different data such as the number of plots, crop infos on area under each crop, start and end date of the crops, and irrigation start end time, pump capacity, and diesel, how much diesel was bought, and the price. So the field that monitoring from Boro season 21 and 22 that shows that there is as far as number of irrigation events are concerned, there are the in case of SIP farmers, the number of irrigation events are lower as compared to diesel, because this is because of the higher flow rate of the SIP pumps. And as far as the depth of water application is concerned, at the Boro Bochakpur site, there is a significant difference between the diesel and SIP farmers. This is because of the difference in sowing date. But apart from that, at other sites, there is hardly any significant difference between the water application at both SIP and diesel farmers. However, in Dolua and Jomubari sites, there is 20 to 30% difference in water application. But at other places, there is no significant differences. So our study was compared with also household survey carried out, and also one study one study done by Moinuddin. So we can see that in case of water application, household survey shows that there is 10% higher water application in case of SIP as compared to diesel farmers. But our study shows that there is 10% decrease in SIP farmers as compared to diesel farmer. However, if we if we remove the Borobuchukpur site, which was the difference mainly due to sowing dates, so this there is no difference in water application in both the cases. Also, Moinuddin, who has done a study using the same methodology, he has shown that in case of diesel farmers, the water application was 640 mm, which is corresponding to our study result. So, the second part is on using groundwater modeling for assessing the sustainability of the groundwater, and if we are going to upscale the solar irrigation pumping at a larger scale. So that is the main policy question here. So for that, we chose the Northwest Bangladesh because it is the intensely irrigated area. And here 83% is the irrigated area as compared to 61% of the national average. And also here the 97% of the irrigated area that is sourced from groundwater. So because of that, only Northwest Bangladesh was chosen as the study area for answering this policy question. So in the groundwater modeling one, there are 4 steps majorly. There are 4 steps. In the first step, extensive literature survey was carried out and data were collected. Based upon the literature survey and data collection, model was conceptualized. After model conceptualization, numerical model was constructed, and numerical model that was tested for its reliability. And after checking the reliability, the model was used for predicting different climate and management scenarios to answer that question. So coming to model conceptualization, it is the very first step of any groundwater model, and it is nothing but to in a simpler term, it is nothing but a simplistic representation of the real world. So basically, how we represent a real world in terms of how much depth we are going, how many layers we are considering, and what are the known boundary conditions. Boundary condition means what is the known water depth or flow conditions there that is subjected to the groundwater model. So basically here up to 90-meter depth was considered because the most of the irrigation abstraction, because the main concern here is the irrigation. So so this 90-meter is the main irrigation depth in the Bangladesh region, Northwest Bangladesh region, as revealed from the literature survey. So the 90-meter was considered as the main model depth here. And also 2 aquifers were considered, bounded by 2 aqueducts. And a total model area was 32,000 kilometers square, and the grid area was 1,000 meter by 1,000 meter that was considered in the model. And the study time period was from 2006 to 2019. And the model was run at a 1-month time step. You can see the first aquifer that was mainly considered as shallow tube well pumping from the shallow. It was assumed that shallow tube well pumping is happening from the shallow aquifer that is of 6 to 55 meter thickness, and the deep tube well irrigation is happening from the lower shallow aquifer that is of 10 to 76 meter thickness. Coming to numerical model construction, after model conceptualization, it was converted to a numerical model. The model basically that was modeled in using a popularly used groundwater model, that is MudFlow. It was subjected to different inputs such as river data, what is the water flow there, what is the topography of the area, what is the depth and observation location of the observation wells, and the pumping and also the aquifer thickness and parameters. Also, the model was subjected to different sources and sinks such as what amount of recharge is happening there and what amount of groundwater pumping rate is there. So it was assumed that the recharge and pumping rate were uniformly distributed over different zones. Then the model was calibrated and validated to observed hydraulic head, and the model parameters were fine-tuned in that process. So as far as model reliability is concerned, model is able to predict the groundwater head at most of the places with good performance indicator. But again, this is in work in progress, and we are still improving this model. After preliminary calibration and validation, and the model is like reliable to for most of the wells, so we went for prediction, different climate and climate change scenario and pumping scenarios. Basically, the base model is the model which is under historical climate data and conventional pumping, that is diesel pumping behavior data. So that is called base model here, and we subjected to that base model for three scenarios. So one is CFC, what is conventional pumping under future climate change scenario, and other two are SIP, which is historical climate change, historical climate data with solar irrigation pumping behavior. So basically, this solar pumping is that comes from the groundwater. That comes from the field study that I showed earlier. So what we are doing is, for climate change scenario, the model is subjected to few data sets, like the climate change scenario. Future rainfall and temperature data set is given as input to the model, because the rainfall is going to impact the recharge, and temperature is going to evapotranspiration, and evapotranspiration that affects the gross water application, and gross water application is going to impact the groundwater pumping. So in combination, recharge and groundwater pumping, they are going to affect the groundwater level. So in the pumping scenario, what we got from the field study, we applied that in the model in terms of increase or decrease in gross water application. So because the difference in water application is within 20 to 30%, so we applied the 10 to 30% increase or decrease in gross water application. These are hypothetical for now, because the field study is for one season only. I'll be presenting both of these scenario, SIP and SFC. SFC is the scenario which is under future climate change scenario and under solar irrigation pumping behavior. Basically, what is the future climate pattern, and 10 to 30% increase and decrease in gross water application. So coming to the results, under the SIP scenario, what is the impact of pumping? You can see that this is the average hydraulic head changes because of changes in pumping behavior. You can see there is high pumping, and the higher pumping causes lowering of groundwater level, especially during the dry season. This is basically this is the average groundwater level for both dry and wet season. But then because of that, only the difference is not very high. But during dry season, the difference is very high. You can see from this time series graph also. The rising limb, which is the wet season, there is a steeper rise because of higher pumping. Because during dry season, higher pumping causes changes in storage, and the storage space is created, and because of that, during the subsequent wet season, there is higher inflow or higher recharge is occurring to the aquifer, and because of that, during the higher pumping scenario and in wet season, the groundwater level is increasing. So that is called Bengal water machine, that is causing increase in water level during the subsequent wet season. So overall, the study shows that there is no significant differences for the 10% pumping increase or decrease scenario for all the locations. However, for 30% scenario, there are some locations populated in Barind area that is causing some depletion in groundwater, but that is yet to be verified. So coming to groundwater behavior near the river, when there is a river or aquifer connected to a river, during wet season, higher pumping induces higher inflows to the aquifer those are connected to the river. That is causing very high groundwater level there. But this is for the case where the observation well is located, if that is observation well is located to the river. And also there is a significant higher inflow to the aquifer near this Yamuna river as compared to Padma river because of higher gradient, and because the groundwater flow direction is from north to south. So there is not much river inflow to this side of the Padma river. So coming to other scenario, that is SFC, that is under climate change scenario, and also the SIP scenario, combined effect of climate change and pumping. This shows that in general, basically this scenario we tested for high emission scenario 8.5, and also the SIP, that is the most closest one, closest SIP scenario, that is plus minus 10%. And we assume that the irrigated area remains same in future. So we tested for two decades up to 2050. So in general, the groundwater level is slightly decreasing in case of higher pumping scenario, and also in the both the decades, the groundwater level is going to deplete. But the as compared to first decade, the second decade case, the groundwater is going to deplete as compared to more. The groundwater depletion is visible as compared to first decade. So, but however, this depletion is not that much significant for 10% scenario. But we need to test for other scenarios also. This is basically the work under progress. So the key message from this study is that with current recharge condition, the groundwater is going to deplete in higher pumping scenarios, especially in the aquifers that those are not directly connected to the river sources or having limited recharge sources. And second thing is high pumping rates induces higher river inflows to the aquifers. Those are connected to the rivers during wet season. And also future impact on groundwater resource is brought about by the combined effect from both the SIPs and climate change that is visible in the second decade I showed in the previous slide. So the preliminary findings is that there will be not significant changes in average groundwater level due to SIP at a regional scale, especially if the SIP water application limits within plus minus 10%. But that needs to be tested. We are also conducting field experiments this season also, so this result will be concreted, or this will be more validated after this season result. So such kind of studies can help for developing effective management options for mitigating the human as well as climate change induced negative impacts on groundwater resources. Thank you. So that's all from my side.
Thank you, Smarnika. So now probably, although we have exceeded a bit, but I think we can take some questions. I hope that is okay. I can see one question already. So you can raise your hand and we can, or you can write out. I don't know if you can speak here. I think you have to type out your question. So, so one question is, do you foresee any risks in promoting groundwater extraction so heavily for irrigation rather than relying on other sources equally? So I'll give it to Smarnika to answer, but I have some observations on this from what we have been finding. So first of all, the question is whether in general you are asking or in terms of SIP specifically. So SIP, if we look at SIP specifically, that's what Smarnika was saying, that so there are two ways it can affect irrigation. First of all, either you are changing your cropping pattern. For example, you are not previously growing boro, now you're growing boro, you need more water, or even your cropping pattern remains the same, but previously you were applying X% of water, now you're applying 1.5x of water because it's now cheaper. Now, for the first case, whether they are changing cropping pattern, we don't find any evidence, precisely because IDCOL targets areas where they are already growing boro, because for their financial model, it is important to have regions where boro is growing. So there is not much scope for change in irrigation pattern due to change in SIP system vis-a-vis diesel, at least in the IDCOL model. The government models are different, but government are not using groundwater for SIPs. They're using surface water for SIP. And the other thing that whether even if the cropping pattern remains the same, you are using more water or not, that we are actually trying to find out. We don't find, at least for 1 year data that we have, we don't find any significant difference between diesel and SIPs in terms of water use in Boro. It's within plus minus 10%. And then Smarnika's modeling shows that if it is within this plus minus 10%, then it does not affect then it will not affect groundwater level significantly. If it is more than plus minus 10%, it will affect
in certain areas.
We haven't yet found out. We haven't yet found out that. We'll collect another round of data to see if our field data that it is within 10 plus minus 10% is correct or not. Now, if your question is more general, that in general should Bangladesh be using, even if it is diesel or SIP, it's not about that, but whether should be about groundwater. So here the thing is, first of all, it's also related to food security. So there is a trade-off inherently in terms of Bangladesh the main food is rice, so you need rice and you need water for that rice. The other sources, in not all cases, surface water is can be used for all the cases and especially this is grown during the summer period when so unless you have more surface storage, where will you have the water for using in the summer season? And actually the Bengal water machine that Smarnika is saying is sort of uses the aquifer as the storage. So the rainfall that happens during the monsoon. So if you pump out water during the summer for irrigation, then you have some space in the aquifer where the rainfall during the monsoon can go in. Now, does it work everywhere in Bangladesh, the Bengal water machine? Probably not. So recently this paper came out, which became very famous in Science magazine from Bangladeshi academicians, which shows that the Bengal water machine is working, but I think it's around 1/3 of the pumps. Smarnika, you can correct me, but yeah, it's for other 2/3 it's not working. For 1/3 it is working. So my understanding is it has to be. So currently, Bangladesh government is very serious about the question, and they have instituted this minimum distance between tubal permit systems, which requires minimum distance between two pumps so that the groundwater levels do not go out. So in some regions, it is important to have that, but not for all the regions. So it really depends on very low. So the policy should be more localized. It has to be in local regions where there is a chance of groundwater depletion to happen because of aquifer characteristics, recharge structures. There you need those in more strictly. In other cases, you don't need it. For example, one finding in the science paper is that at least the conjecture that if you have more ponds, which act as which helps in the recharge. So in those cases, the Bengal water machine is likely to be working. So it has to be more localized. You can't have a blanket rule which makes it very difficult to use groundwater everywhere, because first of all, it will affect farmers' livelihood, income, etc. And secondly, it's also important for food security of Bangladesh. So yeah, Smarnika, if you want to add more to the question.
Yeah, Archisman, you are right, because location-specific recommendations need to be there. Because the Bengal water machine is working there, that doesn't mean that we are promoting for more groundwater extracts.
Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'm talking. Is it not audible?
Oh, okay. Maybe my internet was wrong, but yeah, I hope others can.
So what I was saying is, Chisman is right in terms of giving location-based recommendations, but as you know, Bengal water machine is working, but that doesn't mean that we are promoting groundwater extraction only from the groundwater sources. Government of Bangladesh is also promoting irrigation from the surface water sources, because in wet season what it does is that the river water inflow is increasing towards aquifer in wet season, but in that case the river flow is also decreasing during the monsoon, which is not good for the ecosystem as well. So basically there is need to be a conjunctive water use, that is use of surface water as well as groundwater for irrigation, irrigating the field, but that, yes, that needs to be location specific. So that will be more clear when we go in deeper into that. Yeah.
Thanks, Veronica. Is there any other question? I don't see any other questions. So Mahfuda, maybe you can, if you want to speak something as a concluding remark, otherwise we can, or if any of the organizers have anything else to say. But thanks everybody for joining today. Mahfuda, do you want to say anything in the end?
Thank you, Achishman, and thank you, Smarnika, for the beautiful presentation. You have actually put beautifully put all the aspects of our program into your slides. Just one point, one thing to conclude with is that we are actually hoping to scale up this program in more, climate sensitive areas of the country, and we will be applying for fund to the various other development partners. But as you know, that our program initially was mostly focused on mitigation, but now we will be having a more of the adaptation aspects to the program. So if anyone in the panel, anyone who have been present during the presentation, provide any feedback regarding how we can improve our program, you're most welcome to do that. And I would like to thank ICAD, IUB, and of course the Gobeshona platform for giving us this opportunity. Thank you all, and we hope to be present next year again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ICAD and Gobeshona. Thank you all the organizers for giving us opportunity.
Could you please on your cameras so that I can take screenshots? Someone is speaking.
Yeah, I think they are asking.
Yes, I think we should request the speakers and panelists to open the camera so that we can have a screenshot. I think it's done. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.